Hello there, Mr. K here, the Mediocre Painter, and I do YouTube videos to get you into the wargaming hobby because I made the mistakes so you don't have to. So today I'm going to be talking about Rogue Trader. Now I don't mean like Rogue Trader as the original first edition 40k, way back in the day when I was just a twinkle in somebody's eye or whatever. And I'd like to think now, though, I did actually go out and buy the first edition because I was about 10 at the time. This is the actual Kill Team expansion that kind of turns, Kill Team, we know the top selling game that Games Workshop have at the moment, into sort of like a board game. And, this is an excellent game. I happen to think, actually, that the skirmish game that preceded this, Shadow War Armageddon, is better in many respects, but this is still a great game. You buy this book, and basically you have access to army lists for a bunch of kill teams and all the rules and so on. So it's great value for money. You can get into playing 40k at a skirmish level, so it doesn't cost you the earth. And you can get a couple of kill teams if you buy the first Strike box set, for example, for like £22. And I did a video about that. You can see that up here somewhere. Over there. Yes, there. And so you don't have to break the bank in order to be able to actually play the game, unlike something like 40k or Age of Sigmar, where you need like hundreds and hundreds of models in order to be able to actually play the game. So, what do we get with this Rogue Trader expansion? So here's our nice tasty box, some nice artwork on the front, and this is what we get inside. So essentially what we get is a board, because this is like a scenario based game. You're inside basically a starship, and there are an infected series of crew, Galapox infected, and there's Euclidean Star Striders, who are basically led by a Rogue Trader kill team. So you get the rules, the boards, some tokens in order to be able to play the game. You get 33 Citadel miniatures, which is, headline, that's pretty good, but take that with a little bit of pinch of salt, really, to be honest, because a number of the miniatures are like Nurglings and stuff, and they're quite small. So, it's 33 miniatures, yes, but, they're not sort of like your stock sort of size type of stuff. However, they are exclusive to this set, and they are excellent, and I'll talk more about that later. And this set is about £80, I think, retail, but if you shop around you can get it for about £65. So at £65, you're getting 33 miniatures. It's £2 a miniature. That's not bad, is it, really? If you look at like the best sort of value set at the moment that Games Workshop do, it's probably the first Strike box set. First Strike box set, you get 6 Primaris Marines, 3 Death Guard, and 6 Poxwalkers. So basically you get 15 minis for like £22. I think it's 25 retail, but you can pick it up for 22 or so. So that really represents, very good value for money, because it's $1.50 a miniature. So this at £2 a miniature, not bad at all. Now, one of the things that this thing does say is, you need the original core Kill Team rules in order to be able to play the game, yada yada yada. And I'll come back to that in a minute, because it's not necessarily true. So what do we get? We get a nice piece of artwork in the... Like a lot of these sort of box sets, we get a piece of artwork in there. They typically put this piece of artwork between the sprues and the board part, so often this artwork can get like little dings and indents in it. I got lucky this time and this one is clean. So I should probably get off my butt and probably frame that at some point. What else do we get? Bunch of tokens, 2 boards of tokens. Always good to have tokens when you're playing this game. You get the actual boards themselves. So these are reversible, so for the different scenarios that you get. You then have something which I consider to be a bit of a surprise and a bit of a bonus. You basically then have a couple of codices. You have a codex for the Galapox Infected, and a codex for the Euclidean Star Striders. And so basically here you get quite a lot of detail and fluff, as well as, the actual war scrolls, or whatever you want to call them, the actual rules, about the individuals within each individual kill team. And it's really nice. It's really nice to have this background, and we'll just do a brief sort of expose of what you get in the Galapox infected, and there's some stuff about the glitchlings there. They're small demons. You got Nightmare Hulks, you know, the big fellas. So this is way more than I was expecting from this. I was expecting, you know, you just got the cards with the details of the dudes and maybe a points list, and that was kind of it. I wasn't expecting, you know, a fairly significant amount of fluff. You know, this is, you know, a 20-page book of fluff. You know, with some rules, you know, rules for the specific things and how, you know, pictures of how they look and so on. So that's actually really quite nice. I really quite think that's really quite good. You then basically have like a scenario book. This talks about scenarios and also some of the rules around those scenarios, as well as giving you like the tactics and sort of like, which looks kind of like it does in the main Kill Team rulebook, and also the rule sets as well. And talks about commander abilities, because this is where like commander abilities were first introduced in Kill Team, and what about the strategists and things like that. So this basically is what turns it into a board game, effectively. Nice little book, nice printed, you know, 56 pages, decent thing. Now, one of the things, come back to what I said before, one of the things it says, well, you know, you're going to need the original core, you know, manual in order to be able to play this thing. Well, let's talk about this. So this is the core Kill Team manual. It's 208 pages long. There's 15 or so pages of fluff, sort of setting up the intro in the beginning. There's probably 10 pages of pictures or whatever. The actual rules within it are about 50 pages maybe. And they cover, and a lot of those are actually covering scenarios that you will actually play in the main Kill Team game. So there's not actually a lot based on the actual genuine rules to play Kill Team. So, do you really need this whole thing in order to play the Roll Trader edition when they give you a nice little summary booklet fold out with, you know, the main rules of actual Kill Team on it? And the answer is, I don't think so. I think you've got what you need here to play the game. And it would be nice if they kind of said that, to be perfectly honest, because I don't think you need to go out and buy that book. And obviously it's a marketing ploy to get you out to go and buy that core book, but to be honest, I don't think you need it in order to be able to play. In order to be able to play though, of course, you're going to need to assemble your miniatures. So they do include a booklet. And I actually, when I first dug into this box and I built the miniatures, I couldn't actually find this. I don't know why. I was being a bit thick, I suppose. And so I just built them by cutting them off the sprues and gluing them together. And these are some of the best put together minis of this kind that I've seen. These are not push to fit miniatures. They are glue together miniatures, but they're not shoddy, should I say. They're really nicely put together. They are monopose, of course, so that probably makes it a bit easier. But so are the Blood Bowl miniatures, and some of the Blood Bowl miniatures can be an absolute nightmare to put together. There's gaps everywhere. They're not precise, so you can't quite get it in the position, and so on. These, no problems like that. They slot together nicely, very little in the way of gaps and stuff. If you're a beginner, and obviously push to fit is better as a beginner, but these really aren't that bad and they're not that intimidating. They slot together very nicely, they stick together. Very good job. Whoever designed them on that aspect of things, which is something I always hark on about in order to get people into this hobby, make these minis easy to put together, or make them completely opposable so you can get whatever you like and you have to put a bit of work in. So for someone a bit more experienced like me can go to town. But it's either got to be one or the other. You can't have it just be bad and just be a bit rotten to put together with lots of gaps, and you have to buy, green stuff to fill in the gaps and all that kind of jazz. So that's what you basically get in the box. We'll talk now about the actual minis themselves, and also you do get, which I consider a bit of a bonus, some scenery. Okay, so let's talk about the scenery that we get in this thing. Now, this is not like a super fantastic scenery that you got like in Shadow War Armageddon, where you can play like a kill team over multiple levels and all that kind of things. I mean, people bought that box set just for that kind of scenery. In fact, many people actually bought the Kill Team box set to get access to the great scenery that was in that. However, this is different in the sense that this is, based around being inside a ship, a Space Hulk or a Gloriana class ship and what have you, and it's made of the harder, plastic that Games Workshop use for their scenery. So it's not quite as detailed as the stuff that you would use for a mini, but still very, very nice. So we can get ourselves some basically loot crates. Got 4 of those. We've got some pipe work, which actually plays a key part in some of the scenarios in the game. That's pretty cool. We get a couple of captain's chairs. And I'm not really sure what these kind of are, but they're kind of interesting in that this piece and this piece here basically you glue on, so you kind of get an opportunity to sort of make some of them sort of like semi-open as that somebody's tapped into them, or you make them completely a sealed unit like this one and so on. So it's kind of interesting that you kind of give you that kind of option to give yourself a bit of variety, which is quite nice. These consoles are cool. I really like these consoles. I think they're great. And then you got a bunch of doors, and basically, 2 different styles, sort of a sort of Mechanicum-esque or style. You can see that being like a brass and so on, and then sort of I guess more of a Star Trek-y sort of style, I suppose, with the door going shh, that kind of thing. So pretty good, actually, to be perfectly honest. There's a fair old number of pieces here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. So we've basically got 25 pieces of terrain here, and I could definitely see these being very useful in dioramas in particularly. Not just for playing like kill team scenarios and things like that, but you could definitely use this content here in some really nice dioramas. I think this is really quite nice, and I kind of see these as kind of like being a bit of a bonus to the whole set, really, to be perfectly honest. The minis themselves are pretty much worth having the set, and this is kind of a little bit of icing on the cake. Okay, so let's talk about what we're all really interested in this set, which is the miniatures. So we have 10 Euclidean Star Striders, and then we have basically 23 Galapox infected. So the Star Striders are some of the best sort of Imperial minis I think that Games Workshop presently produce. These and the ones from the Blackstone Fortress set are just outstanding. They are so good, they've got so much character to them, and they're just way better than anything they presently have, for example, in the Imperial Guard range. It really sort of puts a lot of what they've got out there to shame, to be honest, and sort of indicates perhaps they do need a bit of an update. So I could see, you picking up this set and, using these miniatures, not just as, as a Star Triders kill team and playing this particular game, but using them in sort of any sort of near future sci-fi genre game, skirmish game or role-playing game, because these miniatures are unique. There's nothing else that really looks like these. They're fantastic sculpts, and they're really easy to put together. That's one of the things I really liked about it, was these kinds of minis, off a sprue, even though they're mono pose, can be a pain to do, especially, some of the Blood Bowl ones are a nightmare. And these are actually really, really nicely done, very clean and easy to put together. Little gaps, not so fiddly, really great. The great thing about this set of miniatures, though, are these big fellas. They are absolutely superb. Whoever's doing the Nurgle stuff at the moment in Games Workshop, in particular, the Death Guard sculpts, they're just knocking it out of the park. This stuff is just fantastic. I mean, look at this miniature. It's just absolutely amazing. I mean, look at the really quality, top-notch stuff that they've done there on the old belly with the mouths and things. And it just kind of, it gets better. Here's a guy with 3 heads. They are just absolutely smashing minis. I think these are called Hulks. But they're super duper. This guy's got basically a tentacle in his arms, and just the way the tentacle comes underneath his foot, underneath there. There's little details like that. You're like, oh man, so good. And they go together really well. So even as a beginner, they're not that intimidating, to put together, which, sometimes these things can be. This is not a push-to-fit miniature set, which I believe the Blackstone Fortress one is. And we've got some Poxwalkers here. I don't think they're called Poxwalkers, but that's effectively what they are. And these are great as well, to be perfectly honest. A lot of really good character. And then we basically got a supporting cast of Nurglings, or Glitchlings I think is what they're called, but they're Nurglings basically, and Spawn and things like that. So overall, really nice sculpts. I wouldn't say necessarily that this on its own justifies the £65 price tag, but if you were to look at Games Workshop's pricing policy, typically a 10-man squad like this would probably set you back 25 to 30. Equally, this group here would probably be similar. So you add in the scenery, the game board, some tokens and such, and and I think the set represents reasonable value for money. And if you're a collector especially, I think this is worthwhile picking up. Or if you're interested in trying to get someone into this game who is more board game focused, then I think this might be a decent choice. So there we go. That was the scenery and the minis. What does it boil down to? Is this actually worthwhile acquiring and picking up and adding to your collection? Well, if you're a miniature collector, then the minis in this set are super. They're really, really superb. And similar to the sort of Blackstone Fortress set where the miniatures in there are so good, it's worthwhile just buying it for the miniatures. This is, a very close second to that. It's if you can get it for like £65 or whatever, then the scenery is really nice to have if you want to play certain kinds of scenarios, or would be absolutely amazing for dioramas, as I said. The miniatures themselves, top notch, especially the big fellas. Whoever is doing the Nurgle stuff right now is just knocking it out of the park. The Plague Marines are brilliant, the Poxwalkers are brilliant, but those big lads, they are top notch. I really enjoy it. What I would say though is this thing is not perfect. I'm all for trying to get new people into the hobby. It's kind of the reason why I do these things. And so it's, I'm here to basically point out, the shortcomings of these things when they do sort of like fall short. So there are a couple of things, as I alluded to. Do you really need the core manual in order to play what's in this set? No. This could be a standalone game on its own, because they're giving you shorter versions of the rules. They're giving you all the rule sets associated with those actual miniatures with a bunch of fluff, so even they could forgo some of the fluff, for example, and give you a bit more of the detail rules that's in Kill Team. They could perhaps do that. So you could make this thing a standalone solution if they wanted to, and I think that would be a good idea, because this is something you can play on the tabletop. The scenarios are cool. You're on a ship, which gives Kill Team a little bit of a different dimension, and so on. The teams are unique. It introduces, commander traits, for the first time as well, and that was the reason why this thing kind of exists. It's a great game. There is one more thing though that is missing. If I'm going to play 40k, there is one thing you need above everything else other than the actual miniatures, and that's dice. And you don't get any dice in this set. And I'm really surprised at that. You get a bunch of tokens, but no dice. And I thought at least they would throw in like 5 or 6 dice in the same way they did, with the First Strike set. they threw in some dice. And the first try set also threw in, some, little measuring sticks as well. I don't consider that to be too, as essential as dice, because then, dice is, kind of a fundamental thing. And the way this plays on the actual board game, you've got individual squares on the board, so you don't need to measure so much because each square is an inch, so you know how far you're going to move and things like that. So measuring isn't quite, so important in this. So you don't really need the rulers, but some dice would be really nice in order to be able to actually play this game immediately. Does it pass the put together test and play on Christmas Day? Well, no, because you don't have any dice. Now, most households do have some dice knocking around, so you can probably figure it out. You break out your Yahtzee dice or whatever it is you do. But it would have been nice if they just included some dice, and it would have cost them hardly anything, and you can play the thing from scratch from the beginning. So, overall impressions, very good. I'm very pleased I bought it. I am really looking forward to painting up the miniatures and actually playing some games, because in this particular case, because it's a closed scenario and can be done on a board game, and then you don't have so much worrying about line of sight and heights and all that kind of jazz, and the additional complexity that they add on to certain things with certain rules like piling on top of each other. This should be a lot better to actually play with someone who's kind of new to it all, because it can all be done in one place in a much smaller and compact area. So thumbs up from me. If you did like this video, please subscribe. I will be doing more. Catch you next time.